that postal truck. It looks like it's just eaten on the side, like some monster from somewhere, the lagoon. This truck has another interesting phenomenon that I began to notice. It looks like more than just the paint peeled down, it looks like the outer layer peeled down of this door. And then we have fire trucks missing windows. Nothing else seems to be wrong with them. All the windows are blown. But paper wasn't burned? Why just some places was it burned here and not others? That's a weird pattern to have fire. And what was that? Call it the what's-it car. I've since gotten other photographs of this vehicle, and it's a Con Edison vehicle. Just take my word for it. This vehicle in the middle of the street, this one's quite interesting. Look over the tire through the wheel well. You see daylight. In other words, it doesn't have an engine block. And obviously it was driving down the middle of the street. How did it get there? I don't know what this line is down that vehicle. But these are just bizarre things that you wouldn't expect around a collapse scene. This is Park, the street, which is quite a distance north. It's up in the City Park area by where the Brooklyn Bridge is. Why is this car on fire? And the paper around it isn't. Spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous auto combustion. You're paranoid.
Oh, yeah, might happen to me. Even paper in the trees. The whole street full of cars. What happened to this guy's engine? Engine blocks. Whatever it is, it likes to eat engine blocks. And this one, it looks kind of wilted. That ladder's kind of bent over. Folks say, well, something landed on it. Well, where is the something that landed on it? This is on Vesey Street. We saw there was no beams laying on Vesey Street. So where'd the front end go? And this van. This is about a block north of Building 7. No door handles. That was a mail truck behind it. Just take my word for it. But it's already resting on the side of this. And here's more of, I call this the swamp. West Broadway, this is looking south. Down at the end is Building 5 that you see. First thing I noticed is that there's a red light down there. Why is there a traffic light that's working? Notice the fire hose in the street, and it looks like a swamp. The water was working. And just a day or two later, look at this street down here. The most interesting thing is this is where Building 7 was and disappeared. It didn't even spill out across the street. And that bus, that's where it ended up. They moved off to the side and they squashed it down so you might not notice it, so they could clean it up further. How did that street get that way? Here's that street where that cloud was rolling down when Tower 1 went poof. That's the direction the cloud moved in, and after it left, you had toasted cars. So this doesn't look like anything low-tech to me. If you have something that cooks everything in that area would be cooked. You wouldn't have the paper not burned, and other things would be burned. But what things do we know of? What? Chemicals is another thing. But we know there's high-tech things that do different things to different materials.
You mean DOE?
No, we're not going to make any assumptions just yet. We're going to let the data.
The signature reminds me of a guy that was born on a mountaintop in Tennessee. That's what the signatures look like. Rock, stock, and barrel. You've got the inner shearing, you've got the missing pulverization, total missing everything. We know how far the stuff went. Okay? You've got the fires on one side, you've got the molten cars flipping on one side, with the molten stuff in the inside.
Molten stuff? Wait.
I want to get your comments, but we want to get them recorded. So just hold off.
Did we see any molten things? Well, let's look at technology. And folks say, well, there's nothing like that exists. Well, let's just extrapolate. In 1945, someone came up with this gizmo, microwave oven. It uses some sort of a beam. Not a kinetic energy weapon, but a beam weapon. Then one of these, they're so cheap now that you can use them for ornaments on your keychain. And you have all sorts of wavelengths to pick from, pick and choose, mix and match. Don't you think they've come up with something more since 1955? There's a lot of different kinds of energy waves. What are cell phones? You can trigger things with beams. Now, someone, again, talking about the energy, well, we've all heard about the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. The wind didn't blow hard enough to destroy the bridge. The bridge destroyed itself. So on a fine level, if you can get
Harmonic.
yeah, if you can get some, yeah, it's the natural frequency, excite the natural frequency. But if on the very fine level you could get the molecules excited, maybe you could get the thing to self-destruct. I'm just putting out ideas. And note how this bridge came apart. It came apart in one place first, and it unraveled and destroyed itself. It didn't come down in big chunks. I just think that's an interesting phenomenon. So why isn't this moving? Towards the end of September, this is what the area over Building 2 looked like. I don't call this smoke. I call these fumes. It's just the ground's fuming. If this were smoke, it keeps going up. It's just looming over the pile. There's something going on. And over at Bankers Trust, there's this interesting beam here, shriveled up. It was just in a FEMA report, and I would really be interested in talking with the photographer of that picture. Some other interesting cooked-looking beams. And there's our mail truck. Interesting image. This is kind of like Hiroshima here.
Secretary, can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness. It is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
In the normal order of things, when you invest in research and development and begin a developmental project, you don't have any intention or expectations that one would use it. On the other hand, the real world intervenes from time to time, and you reach in there and take something out that is still in a developmental stage, and you might use it. So your question's not answerable. It depends on what happens in the future and how well things move along the track, and whether or not someone feels it's appropriate to reach into a development stage and see if something might be useful, as was the case with the unmanned aerial vehicles.
But you sound like you're willing to experiment with it.
I think that's the point, and I think, we have, I think, from the beginning of this conflict, I think General Franks has been very open to looking at new things if there are new things available, and has been willing to put them into the fight even before they've been fully wrung out. And I think that's not referring to these two particular cases of directed energy or high-powered microwave, but sure. And,
yes.
And we will continue to do that.
Pouring out his neck because they're deployed.
And these are a few of the toys that I found. When I started looking at the data around Ground Zero, I didn't know there was such a thing as directed energy weapons. I just looked at the data, and the data told me there was. And so I looked further, and this is kind of interesting. This is very old information, like 10, 15 years old. Interesting gizmos. I wonder what they do. Keep in mind, Once upon a time, there were some buildings standing there, and then they went away.